Hi everyone, I'm coming to you from Yoga Territory, which is a yoga studio, beautiful yoga studio here in the middle of the city in Darwin, which I'm visiting. So I've been coming here every day or every second day while I've been traipsing around the place and visiting all the beautiful outback places around Darwin. And here at Yoga Territory, I've been coming to some yin classes and they've had really nice meditation as well. So that's wonderful at the end of the day. So today I've got Claire with me who owns this studio, and she's been kind enough to give us a little bit of time to share her wisdom, to share her story of how this place started, and to give us some insight of what it's like to own a yoga studio, and here in particular in a town like Darwin. Hi Claire, thanks for your time.
No worries, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. And let's start. Where did this beautiful space begin for you?
So we've just had our 4th birthday. You just missed it. It was last weekend, and I've been teaching yoga for 14 years now. So I moved to Darwin 6 years ago, and I just never really found the yoga community that I wanted to be a part of up here. There's some really brilliant Iyengar studios, but that's not really a style that I practice. So when I couldn't find the community that I wanted to be a part of, I decided I'd create it. So we opened 4 years ago, and it's been amazing. Like the community that we have up here, the yoga community that we have up here now is it's just like every time I walk into this space, it just fills my heart. We've got lifelong friends that have met each other on the yoga mat. People go out for coffee together after class. We catch up semi-regularly and have like potluck celebrations and just catch-ups outside of doing the yoga. And yeah, it's just got a really strong community, which was kind of like the pillar, I guess, and one of the driving forces as to why I opened this space. Yoga's probably not as mainstream in Darwin as it is in some other parts of Australia. So you still, I guess, have to spend a little bit of time explaining like what yoga is and what the benefits are. As opposed to people just being like, oh yeah, yoga, Yeah. I know all about yoga.
Yeah, it's not a given.
It's not a given up here, no.
Mm-hmm. Where are you from?
Sydney originally.
Oh, okay.
So I used to teach yoga in Sydney before I moved up to Darwin, and I think I'd always kind of in the back of my mind wanted to open a yoga studio. I've been, like I said, teaching for a long time. I've managed a couple of studios when I was in Sydney. And I just wanted to put kind of my own spin on things a little bit.
And what brought you to Darwin?
Darwin's one of those places that either it sucks you in or it spits you out. And I was meant to be here for 6 months. My sister used to live in Darwin, so I came for 6 months just to kind of, sort my life out, I guess, decide, where the next adventure was going to be. And I stayed. And this became the next adventure. So I was quite a gypsy before moving to Darwin, and I left home when I was 17 and stayed maybe 2 years in a place before I kind of moved on. I was a bit unsettled, I guess, but I just liked beginnings and new things and adventure, and moved up here, and it just kind of felt like home. So.
Oh, that's nice when you can find a place that feels like you.
Yeah. So I put down some roots and opened this place, and it's good. We've got like a really beautiful kind of core community, but Darwin's a very transient place. Yeah. So there's lots of people kind of coming and going, which is also really nice because it means that it doesn't ever get cliquey. Everyone's super welcoming. You'll come here for your first ever yoga class, and 4 hours later still be at the coffee shop with some of the other students that you met here. So that kind of that community and that vibe is like quite strong. Like it's just really welcoming. Yeah. And like in Darwin, because it's so transient, you just it just has to be that way. People are always coming and going.
Oh, that's great. So how long have you been here now then?
6 years.
Okay.
6 years.
So you were here for 2 years before you opened the studio?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent. So tell me about the challenges of having a yoga studio as opposed to your maybe, I mean, you'd already managed some, so you would have had a pretty good idea. No? Okay. So let's talk about that, because there's some people out there that I know have the big dream of opening a yoga studio. That's quite common. So can you give us some tips?
Yes. I thought that. I was like, oh, I've managed yoga studios in Sydney, no less, you know, like it'll be fine, but it's not the same. And opening this studio, I developed so much more respect, I guess, for the people that own the studios that I managed, because there's a lot more to it. Yeah, that's a hard one. Tips. I think it's something that you have to really want, like something you have to be passionate about, because it's definitely not easy. There's a lot of hidden costs and hidden things that you need to set up and do and pay for that you don't think about off the top of your head. I mean, you've got your normal software that you need and things, but when you get into business, everybody wants something from you. So, you know, your FPOS machine, you've got to hire that as well as paying all your bank fees. And so there's lots of hidden costs. But I think, like anywhere, it's the space and the teachers that is really important. Like having a space that is really accessible, natural light, nice floors is really important, and your teaching team, because that's what makes your studio.
Yeah.
The rest of it's not as important. There's lots of nice to haves, but a good space and a solid teaching team will, like, that's the heart of a studio.
Was it hard to get a team that was in line with your values or what was your vision? Because you were saying before that you couldn't find a community that fitted in with your values or whatever, so you opened your own. So what is that that's different apart from the style?
So I wanted to create a space where it wasn't like, you know, yoga is a very individual practice. When we're on the mat with ourselves, we're meeting ourselves. It's a very introspective practice, and I love that, and I think it's really important. But I wanted to create a space where that wasn't like, if you just wanted to come in, do your practice and leave, you could, and that was welcome. But if you wanted to come in and get to know the people on the mat next to you, then I wanted to create a space where there was a real opportunity to do that without the individual students themselves having to sit down and be like, hi, my name's Claire, how are you going? And just create that environment that fostered connection.
So how do you do that?
So we have quite a lot of like interactive workshops and things where it's more of a conversation with the students, like beginners workshops and things, where instead of having a teacher here teaching to everyone, it becomes a conversation. We used to have games nights and do like the Sunday afternoon potluck kind of catch up, so everyone would bring a plate and we'd kind of sit around and get to know each other. We set up tea, like a whole bunch of tea, so if people wanted to stay after class and have a chat, and we made all that in our promotions and in our communications with the students. We just made it really clear that they were like, that this was their home away from home.
Awesome.
And yeah, that's made a real difference. And now, like, we're 4 years in, that's something that doesn't, like, it's not something that I need to think about anymore. Like, the students themselves have now created that environment. And, you know, when new people come in, like, I'll find them talking to each other and being like, oh, hey, like, I haven't seen you here before. What brings you? Are you new to Darwin? Etc. And that just happens organically, which is really, really nice. teaching staff is hard. It's still hard. Darwin is a very transient place. The teachers come and go in the same way that everybody else does.
What's the average time that you would expect to keep a teacher on average?
The longest that I've had, so no one in my teaching team now has been there since the beginning. So I think the longest I've had was probably 3 years, but maybe 2 years is a good run. And Darwin doesn't have very many, there's very, very few like full-time yoga teachers in Darwin, because we don't have there's not the population or the number of studios to sustain full-time teaching. So that makes it challenging too, because a lot of the teachers have jobs and then this is like their hobby or their passion. So they can only do it outside of work hours. They only want to teach a couple of classes a week because they also have work. So finding good quality teachers is always a challenge.
Well, that's quite unique, I would say, to Darwin.
Yeah, definitely.
Don't have that problem in the bigger cities.
No, not at all.
Okay.
So if anyone wants to come to Darwin, there's generally
there you go,
always
city teachers. You want some work? Come to Darwin.
There's always, like for example, I have one teacher that left a couple of weeks ago to go home to Canada for 3 months. I have a teacher that's moving back to Perth at the end of this month. I have another teacher that's going to India to study more in August for 3 months. That's a third of my teaching team.
Yeah.
So that kind of happens quite regularly, people coming and going. So yeah, I'd say that's probably the greatest challenge, is finding experienced teachers. Like we've got, there's a lot of new teachers that come through that have just gone to Bali and finished their teacher training that are really keen to get their hands dirty, so to speak. But finding experienced teachers that have kind of found their voice and their style and have been teaching for a while it's hard. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah.
So tell me what's happened with COVID, pre-COVID, COVID, post-COVID, if we can call it that.
Yeah.
Talk me through that journey and how that looks for you now.
You know what? Like, I can't complain. We've been really lucky up here, compared to Melbourne, especially, but even Sydney and things. We've had some really strong mandates and things in place, but in terms of closures and lockdowns and things, we've gotten off pretty lightly.
Did you have to close the studio for a while? Or?
We had to close for 6 weeks in the beginning when like all of Australia kind of shut down, and then since then I think I've probably in total maybe had to be closed for 4 weeks all up in like that whole kind of 2.5-3 year period.
So did you bother doing online yoga?
We did. So every time we closed, we went to online yoga. We had a reduced timetable, but we did Zoom classes, which was great, and we got a lot of feedback from a lot of students saying like, thank you, like just everyone like that. Talking of community, like it kind of just fell apart. So a lot of people were really appreciative that they still got to sign in and do their yoga class. And just in terms of like mental health, we got a lot of feedback that was really helpful. Like it's been definitely challenging, like there's been a period where people have to wear masks doing yoga and everyone's obviously really nervous. We still have the like dots on the floors to put mats, and mats are definitely spaced out more than they used to be. I think everyone's gotten used to having the extra space. On the whole, we've been really, really lucky. And I'd say that things are probably more challenging now than they were during COVID, because Darwin didn't have too many shutdowns. Everyone had to stay in Darwin, but the businesses were open. So we had a lot more people coming through, whereas now all the borders have opened, everyone's leaving, like to go and going on holidays and, you know, going overseas and
right,
doing,
because they've been trapped.
Because they've been trapped for so long. So in some ways, this post-COVID period up here has been more challenging than the COVID period itself, because most of our students are locals. We're in a really good position, like location-wise. So people such as yourself that come to Darwin to visit, definitely, like this is the studio that you would come to. It's in walking distance to pretty much most of the Darwin city. But all the people from Darwin are now like, oh. And one of the great things about living in Darwin is its proximity to Indonesia, Bali, all through Southeast Asia. It's like really close. And when you live here, like ongoing, one of the great things is to get out.
Yep.
So that's been, so I'd say now it's more challenging actually during, just in terms of numbers
and money coming in.
Yeah, definitely. And it's the same with, like, again, back to teaching staff, because they haven't been able to go anywhere now. They're like, oh,
yeah,
I'm going to go and do this training, which is great, you know, like great for me, but I'm going to go on holidays. So then you have a bunch of teachers leaving at the same time. I had a son in all of that as well, so, you know, trying to
super busy.
manage a studio. Right, yeah, it's just any I think studio owner would say, like, it's a lot. And I think a lot of us want to teach because we love yoga, but that doesn't make us good business people. It makes us good yoga teachers.
Yeah.
So I guess that would be my advice, would be to make sure, like, cross your I's and dot your T's. Like, I did a Cert 4 in small business management before I opened the studio.
Yeah, and that was helpful.
That was really helpful, and I taught in a lot of studios that were owned and run by yoga teachers, and I think that can be challenging for yoga teachers at times if you don't have you know, expectations and contracts and like all the business side of things in place. So if you are going to open a yoga studio, I think it's really important to put those things in place and put everything in writing so that everyone's on the same page in terms of, you know, if people are hiring a studio, if you're going out and teaching corporate classes with your teachers, with your students, like all of that stuff is, you know, if you're running a business, all the business side of things is really important.
Yeah. So if you knew then what you know now, is there anything that you would have done differently?
I would have dotted my I's and crossed my T's from the beginning. Like, I would have made sure I had all the paperwork and the systems and the processes in place from the beginning, because then having to go back and do that is much harder.
Like redo things.
Yeah, like, you know, like putting together a teacher's handbook with everything that they need to know, putting together standard operating procedures for all the things that get done in the studio, even just like opening the studio, closing the studio, signing in new students, putting together documentation, like the how-tos for things, putting in a official communication strategy.
A lot of studios don't do any of this stuff.
No, but it makes everybody's life easier.
Yeah.
And I think especially since having a child, it's so, especially like the communication stuff, so important, because I can't just drop everything and answer this text message and read that post-it note and look at what's been written in the diary and check that email. You need a time becomes really important. So the better ways you can streamline that, the easier it is in the long run, and the earlier that you do that, the easier it is in the long run. So that would be my number one advice, and that's what I would But you know, that comes with experience too, and sometimes you need to start before you realise what it is that you need. Yeah. And I think when you first start, you have all the time and you invest so much time and energy into your studio that it doesn't matter if things take longer than they need to. But then when you try, when you've been open for a little while and you have to refine that balance between being a business owner, being a yoga teacher, having your own practice, and then having a life outside of being a studio owner, like time management becomes really important. And if you put those processes in place from the get-go, then you have the time to have children and do all that other stuff. Have a life. Yeah.
Oh wow, thank you so much for all that. Let's finish with your vision for the next few years.
Ooh.
The big dream, if there was nothing in your way.
I have to think about that. You know what I really want? Like the vision for me and the vision for the studio, like I would really love to be able to afford some permanent help, like get a manager or something, so I can start doing some more trainings and get back to developing myself as a teacher, because that's the other thing that happens. You open a studio and you end up teaching a lot less and doing a lot more of the behind the scenes. And that would be my vision, to get an assistant studio manager in place so I can go to Bali for 3 weeks or 4 weeks and do some training and some self-development for myself.
Well, that's a good vision to have.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Excellent. Thank you for your time. Is there anything else you want to share that I haven't covered?
No, but like the offer is definitely there. So if people are interested in coming to Darwin for a stint and want to do some yoga classes or put on a workshop or something, then hit me up, because there's always space.
Excellent. So there you go. There's a nice offer, yoga teachers. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.